Jose Antonio Vargas is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who has come out to admit that he is an undocumented immigrant. In fact, at the age of 12, he came to the country with no documents, and he has been here since 1993. Back in 2011, he wrote an op-ed piece talking about his situation and basically raising awareness about the DREAM Act and how the federal government needs to pass something for undocumented immigrants that were smuggled into the country or who came into the country at an extremely young age. Well, apparently he was recently detained in Texas. According to reports, he was in Texas in order to interview some of the undocumented immigrants that recently came into the country, seeking to stay here. And while he was doing that, or after he did that, he wanted to fly back to Los Angeles. Since Texas is a border state, they have more security, and as a result, they found that he was undocumented and they detained him. Now, before they detained him, he did send out 2 tweets. I want to read those to you. The first one said, "About to go through security at McAllen Airport. I don't know what's going to happen. For updates, follow Define America." And then he also tweeted a photo of the only type of documentation he had, and it was his passport from the Philippines, which is where he's originally from, and also the U.S. Constitution.
Okay. I think that some liberals should get ready to get angry with me, and some people who fight on behalf of undocumented immigrants. I don't get it. What's the Border Patrol supposed to do? Like, if you show up and you don't have documents, they got to arrest you. And it seems like Jose here is saying, like, over here, I don't have any documents. Here I am. Here's my Filipino passport. Come and get me. Here I am right next to the border. Okay. So now, look, he might be doing that for political reasons, and maybe he's a person who has the courage of his conviction, is willing to go to prison. Yeah. I would commend him for that. I really would. And he's standing up for whatever his principles are, and we'll get into what his principles are in a second. But it's hard to blame the Border Patrol. The guy doesn't have documents.
Right.
And so I don't know what they're supposed to do, just let him go?
Yeah, this was more of in my perspective, this was more of a political statement than anything else. I think that he probably expected to get detained if you don't have the proper documentation. You're right, Cenk, Border Patrol is doing what they've been advised, trained to do. And, he has 46.2 thousand Twitter followers. If you tweet something out like that, I'm not saying that it's provoking the situation, but it's making it known. Hey, this is where I am. This is what I'm going to do. I'm likely to get arrested, and that's exactly what happened. Now, there is an update to this story. Border Patrol did release him, and as a result, Vargas released a statement. He said the following: "I've been released by Border Patrol. I want to thank everyone who stands by me and the undocumented immigrants of South Texas and across the country. Our daily lives are filled with fear and simple acts, such as getting on an airplane to go home to our family." So they let him go, but one thing that he talks about when it comes to principles is, defining an American. What does it mean to be American? And he has an organization called Define American. And one thing that he does is he facilitates that conversation, right? So that organization doesn't have a firm stance on what it means to be an American. They just share stories of people who are undocumented immigrants who feel more American than anything else. But at the same time, I think that he advocates for something that makes a lot of sense, and that's the Federal DREAM Act. There is no Federal DREAM Act, right? Senate basically voted down. They were not in favor of it. You have states like California that have their own version of the DREAM Act. And he's, of course, in favor of comprehensive immigration reform, where you have a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants that are already here, who are nonviolent, who are not convicted of any crimes.
Look, I agree with that policy proposal, but I guess I would be much harsher than even the Border Patrol here. Not only do I agree that in arresting him, I don't think I would have let him go. He was on with CNN's Aaron Burnett, and Aaron Burnett said, they're not really going to arrest you. They're not going to stop you. You have a Pulitzer Prize. Well, what does that mean? I mean, so people who have some sort of prizes that are well known in the cocktail party circuit get different rules? Yeah. They'd stop him if he didn't have a Pulitzer Prize, right? And to be fair to Jose, in this case, he said the same thing. He's like, look, there shouldn't be 2 different standards. So if you don't define American, I love the idea of America. I talk about it all the time. I'm an immigrant, and I came to this country. Now, I was documented, and I went through the regular process. I was lucky. My uncle was already here, and he'd gone through an even harder process to get here. And I don't, unlike the Republicans, I don't dislike the people who come here at all. I think they're looking for the American dream. They love the idea of being an American. I commend them, but we have to have some rules. I believe in pathway to citizenship, etc. But in Jose's case, he doesn't have documents. There's no law that applies to him as to why he can stay. He doesn't have a visa. I don't know why they let him go. I honestly wouldn't have.
And I really think it does highlight, a huge double standard in the way that we deal with undocumented immigrants. So, the fact that he is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist means that he does get released by Border Patrol and he gets to remain here in the United States, right?
Honestly, it's a PR thing. Yes, that's why they released him.
And at the same time, how is he different from people who have come into the United States from Mexico and they're nonviolent, they haven't done anything wrong other than entering the country illegally, keep it real. And let's say they're working on, in agriculture and they're, picking our fruit and doing what's necessary to get food on our table. I mean, why is it that that double standard exists? Why is it that we have this negative image of those individuals, but we don't have a negative image of people who obtain documents illegally, by the way? He had a driver's license that he didn't necessarily obtain it illegally, but he got it from a state where you don't necessarily have to prove citizenship to get that driver's license, right? Mm-hmm. So he managed to stay in the country that way. Why is it that he kind of gets let off, but the people who are doing backbreaking labor and who aren't causing any real harm to the country, get deported? And they get detained in private prisons before they get deported. I mean, this whole immigration issue is a mess. Congress is unwilling to negotiate on it, and President Obama is thinking of executive action. I mean, it's gotten pretty desperate.
And look, again, Jose Antonio Vargas knows that they're not really going to send him back to the Philippines because he's in an inner circle now. Like a lot of people in media know him. They'll stick up for him. But they don't know that person who crossed the Mexican border. They don't know them at all, and they're not going to stick up for him, right? Like when you're in Texas, first they have Border Patrol, he says, 45 minutes into Texas. That's true. I've been there, right? And I've seen it. And so he says, well, I got that, so I'm going to fly out. In the middle of Texas, you can't find a way around the Border Patrol in that highway. You couldn't Google it. I'm very skeptical that he didn't want to get arrested. I think he did want to get arrested. Again, I'm not blaming him for it. I agree with his, policy proposals, and this is how he's getting attention to it. We just got to be realistic about what's going down here.
Yeah. It was a political statement. That's what it was. He knew that he would be detained for a few hours and he would be let go, and that's exactly what happened.